And we are live. Hello there. So welcome back to Excel Island. My name is Abatan Sheriffdeen, but you can call me Sheriff for short. So that's my intro. I don't have any other intro. So what I basically do on this channel is I've been live streaming my learning journey on the Datacamp platform, trying to become a data analyst. But actually, I am a third-rated plus freelance data analyst on the Upwork platform. I've had major success on the platform, but I decided to upskill and learn more and get ready for job opportunities and to upskill myself so I can be job ready. I can have the right skills, the right portfolios, the right resources, the right knowledge to become job ready. Maybe probably because probably maybe 80%, 90% or 100% job ready for the work for the job market. So I've been doing that consistently on the Upwork platform. No, sorry, on the DataCamp platform for the past 50 days. So today is day 50 and I'm super excited. The actual goal is day 100 days live learning streak to live stream for the next 100 days. But I actually started live streaming on the 11th day. So if you check the data camp platform, you are likely going to see live streaming starting from day 11. But I have been learning on the Datacamp platform for the past 49 days. And today is day 50. And the target is 100 days learning streak. So that's basically what I do now. So I also share content on Excel, or I plan to share content on Power BI, Python also in the future. But right now, you only see content on Excel and SQL live streaming on this channel. So welcome to Excel Island. If you are new, please do hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Also, put on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know every time I go live. So I'll be doing this for the next 100 days. Today is day 50. We are halfway through the journey and I'm super excited. So currently, I'm on the career track of the Data Camp platform using the SQL or SQL career track, the data analyst in SQL career track. And this career track contains 11 courses in total. You can see 11 courses. I am 58% through the whole career track, and I've actually been learning this for the past 50 days. So you can see I'm actually on a high track. So I should finish this track before the 100. So I plan to build portfolios and do some other stuff in SQL before I now move to data analyst in Power BI, which is a way of me preparing for the PL 300 data analyst certification. You get it now. So I also live stream that journey also. Most people, probably, most likely, I'm going to live stream learning the Power BI using the resources on the data camp platform also. So definitely. So I'm on this career track, the data analyst in SQL career track. Let me just launch that so you see what it looks like. So this career track actually has 11 courses. So I've been able to complete I think 6 courses. I am on the seventh course. You get it now. So while this loads up, so let's talk about freelancing and remote work a little bit. So I'm a top rated plus freelance data analyst using the Upwork platform. So I've been freelancing for the past 2, 3, getting close to 5 years now. And I have a coach who has been putting me through the freelancing world, what to do, what not to do, and how to become a successful freelancer. And so far, so good. I've had major success using the Upwork platform. And my coach, Benga Debi, has a course currently, so he has created the course since last year. So you always update the course with more resources, more experience, more knowledge. So I'll leave a link to the course in the description. So the name of the course is the Freelance Client Magnet Course. So what this course does is that it teaches you how to become a successful freelancer on major platforms like Upwork, on Fiverr, LinkedIn. Using you also learn how to become a successful freelancer using remote job website like Remotive, we work for people per hour, we work remotely at major job website also. So this course is fully packed. So it also introduces you to how to use your social media accounts to position yourself as a freelancer to land gigs also. So do check out the course under the YouTube description. Use the link below. Also, you can also check out Denga profile on Twitter. So when you go to Twitter, search Denga So you see his account. So this is Benga DDE. So he's a highly rated freelance coach with success, major success so far. You can see freelance scale up coach, and he has a lot of testimonials, a lot of records to name. So he doesn't need to convince you, confuse you rather. Well, he doesn't even need to confuse you too much before you believe it. So he has a lot of testimonials he can share with you. I am one of his testimonials. Check out the course. I'll leave a link to that course under the YouTube description. So do give it a shot. And you also have access to him if you purchase the course. You have access to weekend support. Every weekend, there's always a Zoom session where you get to ask him questions like what you are doing wrong or what you are doing right, and he puts you through to you land your first job and you become a successful freelancer and can stand on your own. So this is the SQL career track on the Datacamp platform. So I've completed 6 courses, so I'm on the seventh course. So after the seventh course, we still have more courses to go. Then there's a project, then the statement of accomplishment. I think it also comes with a certification, like you can see certification available. You also pass the data camp certification to receive the certification. So there's a certification exam on data camp also. I think I opened it somewhere here. And this is it. So there are two certification, data analyst associate and data analyst professional. So I think I'm qualified for this. So I'll give it a shot at. I also live stream it, so if I intend to take it, I'll actually live stream it also. Uh, so back here, so what I usually do is sorry about that. So before I continue, generally I always have a couple of weak areas to review based on my learning habits on from data camp. So probably their date for my learning habit based on the data of my learning habit. So when it comes up, I'll just review a couple of weak areas. So if I review weak areas here, and the weak areas are based on past courses that I've taken on that particular track. So I'm currently on the data analyst in SQL track. So if I try to review these courses, this area, I'll continue from where I stopped yesterday. So I will just live stream for like 30, 45 minutes, 1 hour every day. And that's the goal to actually learn little bit every day and compound on that knowledge. They get it down. Not trying to rush through the whole course. So if I review this one now, so let's review this together. So it says, I think this is based on relational databases, it's part of the course. So what is another term for columns or database table? So a column, what is another term for a column? So usually you call columns fields, you call rows records. So it says, consider the following database schema. Which columns contains float numbers? Oh, let's remember this. So float, that should be is a float. So float that should be spend and salary. Uh, so numeric data type are floats. Oh, thanks already. Let me quickly reply that. So consider the campaigns table, which contains information about the various campaigns a marketing agency is running. Which of the following statements is true? There are 5 fields. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Correct. And campaign ID is a unique identifier. Or definitely, this is the campaign ID. There are 4 fields. Campaign ID is a unique identifier, but it isn't a field. Wrong. There are 5 records. Wrong. There are 4 records. There are 5 fields, and customer ID is a unique identifier. That is not correct. So, first option is the correct answer. So, which of the following is the most suitable name for a database table? The most suitable is this. You don't have spaces in a database table. And it says consider a database called companies which field name does not follow the standard naming convention. Which field name? Definitely this year founded. So I think those are basic SQL knowledge. And boom, I think we achieved day 50 straight. Fantastic. So the goal is day 100 days. So we're halfway through the journey. Okay, so let's go back to the dashboard, to the learning dashboard. Good to go. Though we achieved something today, but we could do more. I'll just continue from where I stopped. I think this is the 7th course under the data analyst in SQL career track. I'll just continue from where I stopped. Let's go. So I'm on the course Introduction to Statistics, but it has 3 chapters. So summary statistics, probability and distributions, and I'm on this 3rd chapter of this course, Introduction to Statistics. So correlation and hypothesis testing. So let's continue from here. So I'll just download the slide. I don't have this slide yet. So if I try to download it, I'll just open it on my second screen. I can easily follow the structure along. So if it's downloading, download complete. Let me just open it really quick on my second screen there. We are good to go. Aha. So the binomial distribution. Okay.
Now let's learn about another distribution, the binomial distribution. We'll start by flipping a coin, which has 2 possible outcomes, heads or tails, each with a probability of 50%. This is an example of a binary outcome, where 2 possible values can occur. We could also represent these outcomes as a 1 or a 0, a success or a failure, and a win or a loss. We can perform multiple flips of a single coin and log the results, such as here, where heads is represented as a 1 and tails as a 0. The binomial distribution describes the probability of the number of successes in a sequence of independent events. For example, it can tell us the probability of getting some number of heads in a sequence of coin flips. Note that this is a discrete distribution, since we're working with a countable outcome. The binomial distribution can be described using 2 parameters, n and p. N represents the total number of events being performed, and p is the probability of success, in this case, heads. Here's what the distribution looks like for 10 coin flips. We have the biggest chance of getting 5 heads, and a much smaller chance of getting 0 or 10 heads. As with other distributions, we can calculate the probability of success, in this case, heads. Here's what the distribution looks like for 10 coin flips. We have the biggest chance of getting 5 heads, and a much smaller chance of getting 0 or 10 heads. As with other distributions, we can calculate the probability of outcomes by adding together the area. If we want the probability of getting 7 or fewer heads from 10 flips, we add up the probability of rolling 0 heads, 1 head, 2 heads, and so on up to and including 7 heads. There is a 94.5% probability of rolling 7 or fewer heads. Likewise, to calculate the probability of 8 or more heads, we can subtract the probability of 7 or fewer heads from the total probability, or 1. This gives a result of around 5.5% probability. The expected value of the binomial distribution, 5.5, we can subtract the likewise, to calculate the probability of 8 or more heads, we can subtract the probability of 7 or fewer heads from the total probability, or 1. This gives a result of around 5.5%. To calculate the probability of 8 or more heads, we can subtract the probability of 7 or fewer heads from the total probability, or 1. This gives a result of around 5.5% probability. The expected value of the binomial distribution can be calculated by multiplying n by p. The expected number of heads from flipping 10 coins is 10 times 0.5, which is 5. If we don't know p, but know n by p. The expected number of heads from flipping 10 coins is 10 times 0.5.
Expected number of heads out of 10 flips. Okay.
Which is 5. If we don't know p, but know n and the expected value, we can calculate p through dividing the expected value by n. In order for the binomial distribution to apply, each event must be independent, so the outcome of one event shouldn't have an effect on the next. For example, if we're picking randomly from these cards with zeros and ones, we have a 50-50 chance of getting a 0 or a 1. If probabilities change based on the outcome of a prior event, the binomial distribution does not apply. But if we're sampling without replacement, the probabilities for the second event are different due to the outcome of the first event. We have a 50-50 chance effect on the next. For example, if we're picking randomly from these cards with zeros and ones, we have a 50-50 chance of getting a 0 or a 1. If probabilities change based on the outcome of a prior event, the binomial distribution does not apply. But if we're sampling without replacement, the probabilities for the second event are different due to the outcome of the first event. Since these events aren't independent, we can't calculate accurate probabilities for this situation using the binomial distribution. The binomial distribution can be used in any scenario where independent events produce binary outcomes and does not require equal probability for each outcome. Examples include clinical trials measuring the effectiveness of a drug, where the outcome is whether the drug worked or not, or betting on the result of a sports match, where the bettor can either win or lose. Time to explore binary outcomes using the binomial distribution.
Okay. Let's see this. Recognizing a binomial distribution. Recall that a binomial distribution counts the number of success in independent events. Okay. About that. 4 scenarios are provided below. Your task is to choose which one describes a binomial distribution based on the type of data described. So the first one says the probability of a train arriving in another 10 minutes. That's not independent. Huh? The probability of a man's height being 175 centimeters or less. The probability of matching 4 numbers in the lottery. The probability of the temperature being more than 80 degrees Celsius. Definitely that is the last answer. Oh, that's not correct. The continuous data type of matching 4 numbers in a lottery. That is the answer. So I think you are matching 4 numbers. It's not possible. They are independent. binomial. So it's how you match, it's how a success or a failure. Exactly. Okay. So brilliant. Binomial distribution deduction skills. As a lottery ticket has a target of four numbers, it can be classed as success or failure exactly, depending on whether that many numbers will match or not. So that is that. Uh, so how probability affects the binomial distribution? Recall that the binomial distribution can be described by two parameters, n and p. So n stands for total number of events, and p stands for probability of success. So to examine how these parameters affect the distribution, three plots have been provided representing the probability of closing between 1 and 12 sales per week for three salespeople. Okay. The probability is different for each individual. Your task is to select which salesperson has the highest probability of closing nine or more sales per week. Nine or more sales per week. Okay. What is the probability of closing nine or more sales per week? Mm, nine. Look at this. I think that should be James. Look at James. Probability is high here. It's higher than the rest. Mm, I think we have to calculate that. Uh, Thinking nine sales. Since the probability here is low. Low. Yeah, I think the answer. I know the answer is James. That will be James, correct. See how James distribution has higher probabilities towards the right of the plot, representing an increased probability of closing more sales per week. So that's that. So identifying N and P. Great work recognizing which salesperson had the highest probability of closing nine or more sales. Recall that the shape of a binomial distribution is determined by the parameters N and P, and the expected value is represented by the expected value is represented by the bar with the highest peak. But you can spot what N and P are for James scale distribution. N and P, the N is 12. What are the probability? Uh, the N is 12, which is the total number of events is 12. While the P is what? N is 12, correct? So the P, let me see how to get the P out of it here. Is it based on the highest the sales, the week with the highest number of sales? So how do we figure that out? Okay. 0.23, definitely. Okay, nearly the right probability is 0.23 for nearly, but this is not P. Maybe P 0.67, perfect parameter identification. The distribution has n equals to 12, and there are the maximum 12 possible sales per week, and 8 is the most likely outcome, meaning P can be found by dividing 8 by 12, resulting in 0.6. Let me look at that again. It says perfect parameter identification. The distribution shows n equals to 12, which is correct, as there are a maximum 12 possible sales per week, and 8 is the most likely outcome. Why is it 8? Okay, yes, 8 is the most likely outcome, which is this. So to get P, you divide 8 to likely outcome, meaning P can be found through dividing 8 by 12. Oh, and you get 0.67. That's correct. Okay, that's how you calculate the probability. The highest, the likely outcome. I'm trying to get my found two dividing. Okay, now understood better. So it says this is the normal distribution. So this is the normal distribution, yeah? Let's see.
The next probability distribution we'll discuss is the normal distribution, which is a continuous probability distribution. It's one of the most important probability distributions we'll learn about, since several statistical methods rely on it, and it applies to more real-world situations than the distributions we've covered so far. The normal distribution looks like this. Its shape is commonly referred to as a bell curve. This distribution has a few important properties. First, it's symmetrical, so the left side is a mirror image of the right. Second, just like any probability distribution, the area beneath the curve equals 1. Third, the probability never hits 0, even if it looks like it at the tail ends. For example, the chances of getting a value above 10 in this distribution is less than 0.5%, but it is possible. The normal distribution is described by its mean and standard deviation. Here is a normal distribution with a mean of 20 and standard deviation of 3, and here is a normal distribution with a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. Notice how both distributions have the same shape, but their axes have different scales.
Yeah.
For the normal distribution, 68% of the area is within 1 standard deviation of the mean. 95% of the area falls within 2 standard deviations of the mean, and 99.7% of the area falls within 3 standard deviations. This is sometimes called the 68, 95, 99.7 rule. So why is the normal distribution important? Firstly, lots of real-world data closely resembles the normal distribution. For example, here is a histogram showing the percentage of schools in each region of the United Kingdom achieving pass grades for end of secondary school exams. Drawing a line over the shape of the histogram closely resembles the normal distribution. Secondly, in hypothesis testing, our data must follow a normal distribution in order to perform many statistical tests, such as comparing the mean of a sample to the population it represents. When interpreting the distribution of data, we often use the term skewness, which describes the direction that the data tails off. For example, the plot on the left peaks on the left and tails off to the right, so we describe the distribution as positive skewed or right skewed, as the tail is on the right, where larger positive values are. Conversely, a negative skewed or left skewed distribution peaks on the right and tails off to the left. It is very common to observe skewness in real-world data, such as household income, which is typically positive skewed due to some households earning much more than the typical income. We can also interpret a distribution by its kurtosis, which is a way of describing the occurrence of extreme values in a distribution. There are 3 types of kurtosis. The first is positive kurtosis, also known as leptokurtic, which is characterized by a large peak around the mean and smaller standard deviation, shown here in red. A mesokurtic distribution is the term used to describe the normal distribution, which is shown as a blue curve in the plot. Lastly, negative kurtosis, also known as platykurtic, describes a distribution with a lower peak and larger standard deviation, as highlighted in green here. Time to check our understanding of how to interpret the shape of a distribution.
Yeah, let's check that. So, recognizing the normal distribution. It says the normal distribution is commonly observed in the real world, such as shoe size, adult height, birth weight of babies, and IQ score. Therefore, it is important to be able to recognize this distribution when visualizing data. Here is a grid of 4 plots displaying the distribution of schools achieving various percentage of pass grade for secondary school exams in the United Kingdom, where each of the visualization represents students from a different ethnicity. Your task is to identify which of these plots does not represent a normal distribution. Which of them does not represent a normal distribution? Look at this one. Curve. This definitely represents a normal distribution. What about this? This is close to it also. So it is also close to a normal distribution. This is also close to it though. But this is skewed. This can be a normal distribution, which is skewed to the right now. Be positive skewed or negative skewed. This is likely positive skewed. You go for a plot C. The plot C is it. So we say it is positive skewed or negative skewed. Yeah, so that is the answer there. So it says, what makes the normal distribution special? So in the video, you learn several special facts about the normal distribution. So your task in this exercise is to classify which of these facts are unique to the normal distribution and which apply to all probability distribution. To classify each fact as either being specific to the normal distribution or applicable to any probability distribution. Described by the man and standard deviation. So described by the mean, described by the mean and standard deviation. That should be a normal distribution. Let's see. Displays the probability of possible outcome for numeric value. The probability of possible outcome for numeric value. The total area of the distribution equals 1. Probability of specific event occurring can be calculated using the area under the curve. So, why am I giving everything to a normal distribution? Required for many statistical tests to be performed. That's a normal distribution, and I know that. Symmetrical. I can't give everything to normal distribution. Described by the mean and standard deviation. I'm not sure about that. The total area of the distribution equals to 1. The total area of the distribution equals 1. Mhm. Symmetrical, required for many statistical tests to be performed. Statistical tests. Probability of specific events occurring can be calculated using the area of the curve. So most of the three. I'm pretty sure about this. So probability of specific events occurring can be calculated using the area under the curve. Is that not is the area under the curve? So we know that normal distribution is symmetrical. It is required for many statistical tests to be performed, described by the mean and standard deviation. It says all distributions, the total area of the distribution equals to 1. Or total area of the distribution displays the probability of possible outcomes from numeric values and probability. So you just have to know the most important is the normal distribution, which has to do with the real world data set. And they are symmetrical. It is required for many statistical tests to be performed, and it is described by the mean and standard deviation. So that's cool. So identifying skewness. So while the normal distribution is commonly observed in the real world, it is also quite likely that you will encounter data that is skewed. So recognizing the direction of the skewed and what this means for the data you are interpreting is an extremely valuable skill. So two distributions have been provided. Each statement describes either the direction of the skewness for one of the two distributions or an interpretation of the data based on its distribution. Your task is to classify whether the following statements are true or false. Okay, okay, this is negative, this is positive skewed, this is negative skewed. You can see that. So the majority of the schools have less than 50% of their students achieving pass grades. Majority of the school, less than 50%. Oh, this is true here. Less than 50%. This is false. So the distribution of the schools pass grade is right skewed. School side, so that is false. This is left skewed there. It says that the majority of the school that have less than 50% of their students achieving pass grades. 50%, less than 50 achieving pass grades. That is false though. So a small number of schools has over 600 students. A small number of schools. That is true. If you look at this data set here, so the distribution of school pass grades is left skewed. That is false though. Can see. So I think left skewed, positive skewed, positive skewed is right skewed, negative skewed is left skewed. So the distribution of the school pass grade is left skewed. School pass grade left skewed, correct? So the distribution of the school site is left skewed. That is false though. That is right skewed. A large number of schools achieve 100% pass grade among their students. A large number of schools. That's correct. I think it's close to 100%. Yeah. So the distribution of school size is right skewed. Yeah, that's right skewed. That's true. The majority of the schools have over 4,000 students. That's false. Wow. Ooh. But So it says describing distribution using kurtosis. Another means of describing the shape of a distribution is by its kurtosis, which can represent the size of its central peak and how spread out the tails are. So kurtosis allows you to summarize whether values are bunched up close to the mean and how far out and extreme values may lie. So three definitions have been provided. The task is to select which one accurately represents a normal distribution with negative kurtosis. Oh, come on, negative kurtosis. No, we know there are three types of kurtosis. And kurtosis is a way of describing the occurrence of extreme values in a distribution. How extreme the values are in a distribution. We have three types, lipocortic, meso, and lytic. So a distribution with the same kurtosis as a normal distribution. Mm. A distribution with a larger central peak and smaller tail compared to a typical normal distribution. So the distribution is a normal, distribution with negative kurtosis. A distribution with a smaller peak and a wider tail compared to a typical normal distribution. I'll go for this last. A distribution with a smaller peak and wider tail. Smaller peak. Oh, so this is positive kurtosis. It is a smaller peak and wider tails. Let me look at positive, negative, smaller peak and wider tails. I need to understand this concept very well. So three definitions have been provided. Your task is to select which one accurately represents a normal distribution. This is a normal distribution, but it serves with a negative kurtosis. Uh, a distribution with a smaller peak and wider tails compared to a typical normal distribution. So the error with it is a negative kurtosis, you're going to have a smaller peak and wider tail. Okay. Yes, I think we're almost through with this chapter. The central limit. Let's see the central limit theorem. Probably central limit theorem.
Now that we're familiar with the normal distribution, it's time to learn about what makes it so important. Let's go back to our dice rolling example. We can roll a 6-sided fair die 5 times and record the results. Now, we'll take the mean of the 5 rolls, which gives us 2. If we roll another 5 times and take the mean, we get a different mean. And if we do it again, we get another mean 5 times and record the results. Now, we'll take the mean of the 5 rolls, which gives us 2. If we roll another 5 times and take the mean, we get a different mean. And if we do it again, we get another mean. We can repeat this 10 times. We'll roll a die 5 times, take the mean of that set of 5 rolls, and repeat 10 times. Here are the results, showing the mean from each set of 5 rolls. We can plot these means too. A distribution of a summary statistic, such as the mean, is called a sampling distribution. This distribution, specifically, is a sampling distribution of the sample mean. We can repeat this process to take 100 sample means. If we look at the new sampling distribution, its shape somewhat resembles the normal distribution, even though the distribution of outcomes for each individual die roll is uniform. Let's take 1000 means. This sampling distribution more closely resembles the normal distribution. The shape stays consistent at 10,000 sample means, 100,000 sample means, and 1 million sample means. This phenomenon is known as the central limit theorem, which states that a sampling distribution will approach a normal distribution as the size of the sample increases. In our example, the sampling distribution became closer to the normal distribution as we took more and more sample means. It's important to note that the central limit theorem only applies when samples are taken randomly and are independent, for example, randomly picking sales deals with replacement. Generally, a sample size of at least 30 is required for the central limit theorem to apply. The central limit theorem, or CLT, applies to other summary statistics as well. If we take the standard deviation of 5 roles 100,000 times, the sample standard deviations are distributed normally, centered around 1.9, which is the distribution's standard deviation. Another statistic applies to other summaries replacement. Generally, a sample size of at least 30 is required for the central limit theorem to apply. The central limit theorem, or CLT, applies to other summary statistics as well. If we take the standard deviation of 5 roles 100,000 times, the sample standard deviations are distributed normally, centered around 1.9, which is the distribution's standard deviation. Another statistic that the central limit theorem applies to is proportion. Let's sample from a die 5 times with replacement and see how many times we roll a 4. In this case, 20% of rolls are a 4. If we sample again, 60% of rolls are a 4. If we repeat this 1000 times and plot the distribution of 4s rolled in each sample, it resembles a normal distribution, centered around 0.16, since there is a 1 in 6 chance of rolling a 4. Since these sampling distributions are normal, we can take their mean to get an estimate of a distribution's mean, standard deviation, or proportion. Here we can see our distribution of 1000 sample means, with a red dotted line showing the theoretical mean for a dice roll of 3.5. We've also included the sample mean as a green dotted line, which is 3.53. This is an example of the law of large numbers in action. With our die rolling examples, we know what the underlying distributions look like for the mean, standard deviation, and proportions. But if we don't, this can be a useful method for estimating characteristics of an underlying distribution. The central limit theorem also comes in handy when we have a huge population and don't have the time or resources to collect data on everyone. Instead, we can collect smaller samples and create a sampling distribution to estimate summary statistics. Now, it's time to practice utilizing the central limit theorem.
Okay, let's look at the central limit theorem. So it says visualizing sampling distributions. Now, let's check the understanding of how the central limit theorem applies to different distributions. An app has been displayed, allowing you to create sampling distributions of different summary statistics from samples of different distributions. An app has been displayed, allowing you to create sampling distribution of different summary statistics from samples of different distributions. That's kind of tricky. So which distribution does the central limit theorem apply to? Okay, which distribution? Say discrete, continuous, binomial, all of the above. So exploring the central limit theorem. Number of samples, summary statistics, the distribution. Okay. It says which distribution does the central limit theorem apply to? So the more the size of the, okay, let's see. Number of samples, I still have a number of samples. Okay, let's do 100. mean maximum minimum. Hmm. Let's do 10,000. Hmm. I would say the binomial distribution. Hmm. Hmm. So it's because one of the above. Let's see. But the sample here is smaller. Uh, just play with the sample. Okay, normal distribution. Expect that already by normal distribution. So victorious visualizing. Regardless of the shape of the distribution, you are taking sample means from the central limit theorem. You apply if the sample distribution contains enough sample means. Okay. So the CLT versus the law of large numbers. We call that earlier in the course you learned about the law of large numbers. As a reminder, here is a plot showing a distribution of 100 samples and 1000 samples of a die row. So these concepts can sometimes be confused with the central limit theorem. So let's check your understanding of the definitions and differences between the two. You will need to classify each statement as being applicable to either the central limit theorem or the law of large numbers. Quite funny. So drag the items into the correct bucket. This concept generally applies once the sample size is 30 or more. Definitely the law of large numbers. So this concept does not always result in a sample taking the form of normal distribution as sample size increases. Uh, mm, Taking the form of normal distribution. As the number of samples, let's come here. As the number of samples, as the number of samples from a statistic calculated increases, the distribution will more closely resemble a normal distribution. Okay. As the sample increases, the sample may get closer to the value of the population mean. I've missed one. Let me see them to each other there. But let's see, the law of large number says the concept does not always result in a sample taking the form of a normal distribution. As a sample, the law as the sample increases, the sample mean gets closer to the value of the population mean. What about the central limit theorem? As the number of samples some statistic calculator increases, the distribution will more closely resemble a normal distribution. That's correct. The concept generally applies once the sample size is 30 or more. Yeah, I think I read that. So nicely done. Understanding the difference between these two concepts is important as we begin to learn about hypothesis testing in the next chapter. Now let's examine when to use the central limit theorem. Okay. So when to use the central limit theorem. So in the video, you saw a workflow on whether the central limit theorem should be applied or not. depending on various factors. In this exercise, 4 scenarios have been provided. Your task is to choose which scenario would require the use of the central limit theorem to produce summing statistics that are normally distributed. Finding the mean IQ of all 100 students in my class. So we need the central limit theorem. So measuring the standard deviation of household income in a road with 20 houses. Determine the percentage of adults in the USA that have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So the percentage. Counting number of babies born with blue eyes in the hospital within 1 day. So, measuring the standard deviation of household income in a road with 20 houses. Probably measuring the standard deviation of household income in a road with 20 houses or determine the percentage of adults in the US. So when should we use the central limit theorem to do some statistics that are normally distributed? Definitely measuring standard deviation in a road with 20 houses. Come on. Oh, center. Okay. Mm. So we want to get the average, the mean. Come on, I should have figured out. So they want to get the average, the mean. So it will be nicely done. It will be impossible to find out the type 2 diabetes status of every adult in the US. So an appropriate approach is to take lots of sample across several locations and use a sampling distribution to calculate the percentage diagnosed. So that should be the average percentage. Okay. To diabetes. Uh-oh. I think we are through with this chapter. Well, we are through with chapter 3. For almost 1 hour to life. Let's finish this chapter 3. What is the Poisson distribution? How many type of distribution do you have now? Not so much. When I say the normal distribution is widely used. Okay.
In this video, we'll talk about another probability distribution called the Poisson distribution.
The Poisson.
Before we talk about probability, let's define a Poisson process. A Poisson process is a process where the average number of events in a given time period is known, but the time or space between events is random. Poisson processes are very common in our day-to-day lives. For example, Poisson process. A Poisson process is a process where the average number of events in a given time period is known, but the time or space between events is random. Poisson processes are very common in our day-to-day lives. For example, the number of animals adopted from an animal shelter each week is a Poisson process. We may know that on average there are 8 adoptions per week, but the time between adoptions can differ randomly. Other examples would be the number of people arriving at a restaurant each hour, or the number of visits to a company's website in a day. Understanding Poisson processes can be extremely valuable in a range of settings. The Poisson distribution describes the probability of some number of events happening over a fixed period of time. We can use the Poisson distribution to calculate the probability of at least 5 animals getting adopted in a week, the probability of 12 people arriving at a restaurant in an hour, or the probability of fewer than 200 visits to a company's website in a day. The Poisson distribution is described by a value called lambda, which represents the average number of events per time period. In the restaurant example, this would be the average number of patrons per hour, which is 20. This value is also the expected value of the distribution. A Poisson distribution of sample size 200 and lambda equal to 20 looks like this. Notice that it's a discrete distribution, since we're counting events, and 20 is the most likely number of patrons to visit in an hour. Lambda changes the shape of the distribution. Using our restaurant patrons per hour example, we can see a Poisson distribution with lambda equals 10 in green represents a typical value of 10 patrons per hour. This looks quite different to a Poisson distribution with lambda equals 20 in blue, or lambda equals 50 in red. But no matter what, the distribution's peak is always at its lambda value. Just like other distributions, if we have a large number of samples and calculate the mean for each, then the distribution of sample means of a Poisson distribution looks like the normal distribution. We can calculate the probability of a specific number of patrons visiting a restaurant by measuring the height of the bar representing that value. For example, the probability of exactly 13 patrons visiting the restaurant in an hour, given the average is 20 patrons, is 2.71%. Likewise, to calculate the probability of at least 25 patrons visiting in an hour, we can add up the heights of all the bars from 25 onwards. In this case, the probability is just over 11%. Time to work with the Poisson distribution.
Okay. So this is the last chapter. The last exercise in that section. So identifying the Poisson process. They say the Poisson distribution is very important because it occurs in a variety of real-life circumstances. So recognizing when the Poisson distribution applies can be helpful for business planning or in studying the occurrence of events in nature. Your task in this exercise is to match the scenarios provided to either the Poisson distribution or another distribution. Okay. Probability of mobile phone being broken. Another distribution. Volume of multi application received per month. Probably Poisson. You can't know the volume. Probability of voting for a political candidate. Number of voting. Number of earthquakes in the state of California in a year. Mhm. Number of side effects from a range of medication. Uh, Number of books sold per week. Hmm. That means I'm missing one. One's supposed to be here. Volume of multi application received per month. Number of earthquakes. Number of side effects. Should be normal order distribution. Number of books sold per week. Okay. Let's give the short. Let's see. Aha. I got it. And then something is also missing here. Number of for volume of multi application received per month. You can see in California in a year. Number of books sold per week. So perfect. Person identification skills. Now let's see if you can recognize the value of lambda when presented with the Poisson distribution. Oh, let's see this. They say recognizing lambda. Now that you learn about the Poisson distribution, you know that shapes is described by a value called lambda. In this exercise, you select which of these plots represent a Poisson distribution with lambda equals to 2. Uh, the lambda equals to 2. Oh, okay, let's finish this. Oh, we're 1 hour into the live stream. Lambda equals to 2. Okay, I'm looking for us to calculate the lambda. Uh, we can get that to the scale on the axis. Let's try the scale on the axis. Let me. The peak value is 6 here. So the peak value here is where? The peak value is 2 here. So looking at the peak value. So this distribution has a peak value around 6. Value that have the highest probability are close to or equal to the distribution mean. The distribution mean the probability is 10. The distribution is 10. You see the not quite this distribution has a lambda of 10, where we can see that there is probability of 10 events occurring. Probability of 2. Oh, this should be the answer because the probability of 2 events occurring is 0. Oh, look at a silly mistake. That is a silly mistake there. Okay, based on number of the lambda is the number of events occurring. 0, 1, 2, can say 2 here, then 3, 4. When you look at it here, the lambda has what has the correlation with lambda equals to 2. So you can see here 0, 4, 2, 4. That was pretty straightforward, but I missed it. I think we are through with this chapter. These are just theoretical concepts that one needs to understand pretty well. So just find this last chapter. We are starting chapter 4, correlation and hypothesis testing. Tomorrow, so this is the end of today's live stream. Oh, so what the laws do? They are just probability distribution, uh, binomial distribution, and some stuff like that. Alright, so thanks for staying to the end of the live stream. So if you found value in this live stream, smash the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Also, don't forget to check out the freelance clients magnet course by my coach Benga DBE. The link is in the YouTube description. Make sure to check it out. Give this video a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and put on the notification bell so you know when I go live tomorrow. Alright, we've achieved day 50 learning streak, and we are almost through with this chapter. I'll see you tomorrow.